The next video, this should be the last in this little series, we're going to look at change the subject. So I think the most important thing to remember for change the subject is we have to do the opposite. Okay, so the opposite of add would be take away, the opposite of multiply would be divide, the opposite of a square would be a square root. That's probably the most important thing that you can remember. So to undo something, we do the opposite. We also need to remember that if we have an equation, so something very basic, say I've got x plus 4 is equal to 10, we have to maintain balance. So if we want to make x the subject here, I want to get rid of the 4. To get rid of plus 4, do the opposite, take away 4. But I have to then do that to both sides to maintain balance. So I'm going to end up there with x is equal to 6. And the very, very last rule is BODMAS in reverse. Okay, or BODMAS, whatever you want to call it, it's fine, in reverse. So usually when we are solving an equation, so we'll have something along the lines of, x plus 2 squared, times by 5 plus 4, something like that. We would do the bracket first for BODMAS, yeah. Then we'd look at our orders, so then we'd do this. We'd then look at our multiply and divide, so I'd do this, and then I would do the adding. If we want to rearrange that subject, so we wanted to rearrange that equation, so say that was equal to, say it was equal to y, and we want to rearrange to make x a subject, we would do the opposite direction. Okay, so this way we would solve it we would substitute in BODMAS for BODMAS, we'd do the opposite to rearrange. So I would get rid of the 4, I'd get rid of the 5, yeah? I'd want to do the square root and then get rid of the inside the bracket. So as an example for that one, first thing I'd want to do, get rid of the 4, so I'd take away 4 from both sides. So x plus 2 squared multiplied by 5 is now equal to y take away 4. So I take away 4 from both sides. I want to get rid of the times by 5, so I now need to divide both sides by 5. So on this side it's going to cancel out. So I'm now left with x plus 2 squared is equal to y take away 4 divided by 5. I would then like to get rid of the squared sign. So what's the opposite of a square? It's a square root. So I have to square root both sides. And now these two will cancel out. So I'm then left with x plus 2 is equal to the square root of y take away 4 divided by 5. Apologies for the mess. And then finally, get rid of plus 2. I need to take away 2. So when you're doing this, remember, do the opposite undoes something. So the thing most people find hard is, as I said, 2x is equal to y plus 5. They see a 2 and they think, oh, to get rid of that 2, I take away 2. Think what it's doing, that's 2 times. So you would divide to get rid of that 2. And you can actually physically see it by dividing this side by 2. 2 divided by 2, cancel and give us 1, gets rid of it. Okay? Something like 1 take away 2x is equal to y. If I wanted to make x the subject here, I'd first have to get rid of the 1. That's a plus 1. So I'd take away 1 from both sides and then divide by the negative 2. Okay, so remember the opposite undoes something, but you have to do that to both sides, which is what I've done here. And the order we do things in is BODMAS in reverse. So SAMDOB or SADMOD, whatever you want to call it, but it's the BODMAS in reverse. So let's do a few Nat5 examples. Let's change the subject to this one. So we're looking for x to be the subject. So there's x. Another little tip as well is that usually you're working your way in towards the x as well. So you it's almost like you're starting on the outside, working your way in. So for this one, first thing we'd want to move there would be the h. Yeah, this is g times x to the half or root x plus h. So if we think of BODMAS in reverse, it's that. We're going to move, then we'll move the g, then the square root. So this might be a 3-mark question, and you get a mark for each stage. So let's get rid of the h. I'll take away h from both sides. So I'll get y take away h is equal to g square root of x. Yeah. How do I get rid of times by g? Divide both sides by g is equal to the square root of x. How do I get rid of a square root sign? Opposite of a square root is a square. G. And that would be everything squared is equal to x. Now what you can do if you want to be very cautious, you could put some numbers into this equation and see if that works out at the end. So let's just say, for example, g, so I called that 2, and I'll call x 4, so just so that root 4, fine, I'll call it 9. Yeah, I'll call it 9, just so that root 9 would give me 3, and I'm going to call h 4. Yeah. So that would mean that y would be equal to 2 times 3, which is 6, plus 10 is 4. So that's my equation. If I just put in any numbers I've just made up. Yeah, so g is 2, x is 9, so root 9 would be 3, and that's 4. Let's see if it works this way. So y is 10, take away my h, which I said was 4, divided by g, which I said was 2, so that, and then I'm going to square that. Let's see what I get. So 10 take away 4 would be 6, divided by 2 is 3. If I square it, I'm going to get 9, which is what I said x was. So again, when you rearrange, you can actually kind of check to see if you've got the right answer as well. Just put in some nice numbers that make sense up here. So the only hard bit was known to put a square number in here, so you would get a nice square root. Okay, not too bad, is it? Right, next one. Making b the subject. So again, starting as far away from b as possible and working our way towards it. Now this is interesting because it almost looks like if we were looking at BOM-DAS in reverse, you'd almost want to deal with this first. But when we've got a fraction, the top bit is actually, it's like it's inside a bracket, because I have to do all of this before I can divide by c. Okay. So the top bit is in a bracket, which means we'll be doing that bit last. So we're going to have to move the c first. So times both sides by c is the starting point. So if we've got a bracket, it'll be the underside of the bracket probably we're starting with. So this is our bracket. That means BOM-DAS in reverse will do the divide before we do the bracket. Now we've got t squared plus 4b. We want to do BOM-DAS in reverse. Again, you would be imagining there's a plus, we're dying to do that plus. But actually, the t squared is like plus t squared, isn't it? I could rewrite this as, instead of t squared plus 4b, that's the same as saying 4b plus t squared, isn't it? Oops, plus t squared. So I want to get rid of the t squared actually. So it's fc, take away t squared from both sides, is 4b. And again, you're working towards the b, so getting close to the b with the last thing you do. So you would think you'd want to get rid of this. I know it's a square sign, so you'd be thinking that's like an order. You would be dealing with this first, but it's effectively we're adding it on. So we want to get rid of it with take away, which means that'll be first on our list. Getting rid of the 4, fc take away t squared, divide both sides by 4, and that's equal to b. So I think that's a trickier one. We have to know that this bit is in a bracket, so we do the c first, and then we have to remember that, yeah, it's t squared plus 4b, or the same thing, 4b plus t squared, so then we're getting rid of the t squared and then the 4. So I think on like a present, you're working your way towards, taking off all the different layers, and as you get closer and closer to b, that's the end of the question. So you wouldn't be tackling the 4, then the t squared. The 4 would be the last thing you'd be looking at. V. Same as last time. First thing we'll do is get rid of that 2. So it's going to be 2p is equal to mb squared. Because like we said, if there's a bracket, then this is like it's inside a... Sorry, if there's a divide, this is like inside a bracket. So that would be the last bit of BODMAS. V squared is what we're working towards. So we'll be doing the squared last. So the next thing will be 2p divided by m. Yeah. Divide both sides by m. And then to get rid of the squared, square root of 2p divided by m. So again, if you get to this point, you think, oh, is it the m, is it the v squared? Well, BODMAS in reverse, the multiplier would be before the order, but also just working towards v squared as your, or v as your subject. That's the last thing to go because it's right on it, isn't it? So if you had something like, just the bit next to your section, that as you get closer towards it, that's the last thing you do. All right. So I'm probably explaining that really badly. And very last question we'll do. So I'm just going to write this out. Actually, BODMAS, just to remind us, in reverse. So I'm looking at this thinking there's no add and subtracts. There's a bracket, so I know I'm going to deal with this bit last. Well, this question, sorry, is to do x. I'll be doing that last. So I'll deal with the bracket last. Now I want to do these, and these are multiplying. It's h times, so it's half times h. So we can do these whatever order we like. You could actually rewrite that as a is equal to h x plus y divided by 2. That's the same thing. But either way, we're going to get rid of h and 2 at the same time. So I'm going to times by 2 to start me off, and then I'll divide by h as well. Yeah, so BOMDAS, doesn't matter if you divide or multiply, whoever. But I'll move the 2 and then move the h down. Last thing to do is just take away y from both sides. Now this looks complicated because it's got a fraction, so no, you can rewrite that as a fraction. The other thing you could have done if you didn't like what I've done here is you can say, well, how do I get rid of this half? I'll times both sides by 2. That still puts the 2 up here, doesn't it? It puts the 2 up here, and a half times 2 is just 1. How do I get rid of the h? Divide by h. So you can rewrite it like this, or you can just know to multiply through by a fraction. And again, the bracket was the last thing we wanted to do, and inside the bracket, we want to get rid of the plus y, take away y. So I hope that's helpful. I think this is a wee bit more of an art. Sometimes, it's than other. It's not as prescriptive as say some of the formula type questions you get. But for me, the guiding principles are know the opposites undo each other. So know your opposites. Know you have to do them to both sides to maintain balance, and know we're doing BODMAS in reverse. So we're looking to do add and subtracts, then multiply and divides, and then orders, brackets. If we've got something like this, that is inside a bracket effectively, so we want to deal with the division first. Same in this question as well, yeah? And then the same on this question. So you can see these just 3 questions in a row, where the first thing you did was multiply by the division to start you off. So if you see a fraction, you could possibly bet that that's the first thing you'd be doing, is multiplying through to get rid of it. So yeah, hope that's helpful. Have a good one.